There's good news and maybe bad news about financial aid. It's important to be educated about both sides. Financial aid expert Alice Hoffert is here to tell us more about the benefits and possible pitfalls of the system. Thanks for coming on the show.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.
Well, this might be a complex question, but if you can, could you sum up for us, how does the financial aid system work?
The financial aid system works wherein a student and their family's income and assets are considered to decide how much federal aid they should be receiving and what kind of aid, whether it's gift aid they don't have to repay or loans that they do have to repay.
Okay. And then I know, of course, you get money, so it's beneficial in that aspect, but how is financial aid beneficial to a student that takes it out?
Well, for many students, they and their families don't have the resources to provide access to education. So without financial resources, they may not even be able to access any education, and that's what financial aid provides for them.
Well, who's eligible? Anyone?
Everyone.
Okay.
As long as you attend an accredited school and are working towards a degree, you are eligible for some type of federal financial aid. It may be need-based or it may not be. But the simple answer is everyone.
Okay. And then how do student loans differ from conventional loans? For example, if I was to go to a bank and get a loan, I have to fill out an application and see if I could pay it back and all that sort of stuff. How is it different?
The federal financial aid loan programs are guaranteed. So a student, if they're eligible for those programs, and as long as they're attending a school in an accredited program, they are eligible. And so what happens with those loans is that they are at a lower interest rate and a guaranteed interest rate, and they also are guaranteed. In other words, your income and assets count, but whether or not you're credit worthy doesn't count. So even if you don't have if you don't have a credit history or not a good credit history, you'd still be eligible.
Okay.
Whereas commercial loans, you would not be.
Right. Okay.
Or you may not be.
And you mentioned lower interest rates. Does that fluctuate at all?
They're set for a year at a time, but they certainly do change on an annual basis.
Sure.
But they're guaranteed for that year.
Okay. When does financial aid become a possible problem for a student who takes that opportunity?
It's always a good solution to invest in something with a good rate of return. And an education is a good rate of return. For example, a student with a bachelor's degree can expect over the course of a lifetime to earn about $1 million more than a student who doesn't have a bachelor's degree. That's a good rate on return. Where it isn't a good rate on return is if you're borrowing money to go to school and don't complete your education, or take the money and spend more than you need, borrow more than you actually need, and then use it for other things.
Okay. That was I was going to ask about that next. Can they do whatever they want with the money? I mean, you take out this loan for the purpose of getting through school, but you could argue there's a lot of different things you need to buy to get through school.
Correct, and the financial aid program is based on a total cost of attendance. So it's tuition and fees certainly, but room and board. Living expenses are also included, books are included in those. The cost of financial aid or the cost of attendance to attend a school. So that's how the money comes in, is based on what that costs. And it's often, it's money that goes directly to a school, not a student.
Okay.
And so the money goes, first of all, to pay whatever tuition and fees or other bills that student has with the institution. And the extra money is what goes directly to the students.
Okay.
And that's where the challenge begins.
Okay. Well, and that challenge, if I'm smart with my money and I'm a young person and I take this money out, I get that extra money. Why can't I just put it in savings and generate interest and that sort of thing?
Well, you probably receive the money because you have educational expenses that you actually need to use that money to pay for those expenses. But saving is certainly an opportunity. But better than that is to don't borrow it if you don't need it, so that it doesn't accrue any interest.
So you do have the opportunity to say, I don't need it right now, so you can decline the
You can decline some or all of it, all of your financial aid. And if you do take it and find you don't need it, you can repay a loan early.
Okay.
So that's an option.
It sounds like the type of person taking out a loan with no credit history or bad credit history would be a huge risk. How does this work?
In this country, there's a belief in education and access to education. So these loans are guaranteed and subsidized by the federal government. That's a commitment we have made as individuals. It's a public policy issue to fund education or access to education.
Okay. And then, what happens if someone doesn't make the payments? They get out there, it's hard for them to find a job, maybe in the job market today, and they can't make the payments. What happens?
The first thing someone should do, a borrower like that, is should work with the lender. If it was a private lender, the federal financial aid loans now come from the federal government. But try to work on having those loans deferred so that payment doesn't have to begin till a later time. If not, then if a student doesn't make payment and makes no arrangements, they go into default.
Okay.
And that has major implications.
Sure. And what should a student consider when deciding to whether to accept or not accept a federal loan?
Start with the cost of attendance. What do I need this money to do? And if I need it for tuition and fees, room and board, books and supplies, that's what the money's to do. If I'm looking at the money and think, well, it'd be kind of fun, I've been looking at this new stereo system. That's probably not what they should do.
Sure. Okay.
That comes later because this is borrowed money.
Yeah, and it seems like common sense, but it's good to hear it, right?
Yes, always good.
All right.
And before students receive financial aid, they'll have to do something called entrance loan counseling,
Okay.
where they're counseled as to that this is a loan, there are repercussions, there's repayment and repayment schedules.
Sure. All right, Alice, thanks so much for coming on the show today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you.